First, starting with Landry's. I mean, we can't overlook that incredible restaurant group
Right.
here in Texas. It's been around forever, staple in Texas communities. What were the biggest things that you learned from that group as far as operations? And
It taught me so much. I mean, it was critical to my success. It really was critical. I was a front of house manager, but really I probably was more acting as, at a minimum, I was the assistant general manager and probably was more the general manager. My general manager wasn't all that great, and saw how passionate I was and kind of just let me take the bull by the horns per se. So it taught me so much about inventory, about reporting, about HR, about all the things that, quite frankly, 19 and 20-year-old kids just don't learn. And I was just submerged in it, and it was intense, and it was a busy restaurant. I mean, in Lubbock, Texas at the time, it was the hottest place in town. I mean, $3.5 million a year on the loop of 1604, or whatever their loop was called at the time, 360. It was an incredibly valuable learning experience that I certainly would not be who I am today without that experience. And also because my boss was so critical, not in a good way, like not in a good work environment way.
So like standards critical.
Yeah, like if I just, but also just like hazing, and I was so young that I tolerated it. Like the money was so good to be, I mean, I was a salaried manager running a crew of 65 people. Like I could not afford the job, if that makes sense. But if he came in and a light bulb was out, would just lose his shit, and call me at 7 a.m. on Sunday and be like, what are you doing? This light bulb's out, Well, we had 5,000 Christmas lights hung in the restaurant. Of course they're going to go out, And, but it also taught me how I would not treat my staff. And I still carry that with me today. Now, it did teach me to be very critical in a sense of, I try to teach the thing he taught me that was valuable was you walk in the restaurant the same way every day. You have a routine. You walk the same path, and then that way you can see everything, and you see things that other people just simply don't see. And so we try to teach our staff to do that.
So he taught you how not to do it. So in that
he taught me how not to treat people.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you for correcting me. What I was going to ask, how would you do it today, knowing what you know, evolving the way you have evolved in that same scenario? How would you have done it?
In what sense? If I was in his shoes?
If you're in his shoes, if you found a light bulb out in your restaurant today, what would be your approach to correcting that behavior?
I think it's more just simple one-on-ones when you come back to work. I mean, was it critical for me to get out of bed to come up to change a light bulb just to prove a point? No, because all that ended up happening is me losing respect for him.
Yeah.
It got so bad that I literally went to his house one night and said, I'm done if you don't fucking change.
What happened from that point?
He had basically a breakdown at the thought that I was going to leave and he would be exposed, that everything completely changed. Damn. It just took me standing up for myself, which was not easy, and
so I think it's like a double-edged lessons here, right? One, three, like he did teach you standards. He did teach you that you got to care about those little things. He also taught you there's a better way to communicate that you have to care about those things. And I think the underlying lesson here is that you got to communicate when you're not feeling like you're being seen the way you want to be seen. Like,
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of power in standing up for yourself and doing it in a way that is respectful, like approaching and speaking to this person face to face. Like you could have just bashed that person behind their back. So what is your advice for somebody who's like, fuck yeah, I'm listening to this right now and I'm not being respected. I want my manager to respect the value I bring to the team. Like how do you approach somebody in a way that won't get you fired, but in fact make your relationship stronger?
You have to be willing to lose it all, and that's the hardest hurdle to get over. And that's probably why most people do keep their mouth shut and they don't stand up for themselves, because you're afraid of the repercussions. But what I learned is that by finally mustering up that confidence and having that conversation that he was forced to realize how much power I really did have. And so my advice would be, you have to be willing to walk away, but you're going to be okay. And a lot of times, most of the time, it's kind of like the schoolyard bully. You know, they just pick on you, and the first time you bop them in their nose, they have the tendency to take a step back and maybe rethink the repercussions themselves. So it really taught me, more than anything, it taught me to treat your people with respect and dignity, because that goes so much farther. And, you know, for me in my business model, culture is everything. Without the culture, you know, I've got employees that have been with me all 18 years.
Yeah.
I've got, 15-year employee. I got 13-year employee. I got,
Damn, that's a statement right
I have
there.
a lot of double-digit employees and a lot of 6, 7, 8, 9-year employees. And so that's something we're incredibly proud of, but I don't think I would have gotten that philosophy without the situation that I was in. So there was definitely a silver lining in being treated like shit for 2 years.
Yeah, Chef Jason, I'm loving this, man. I feel like I could hover here for like another half hour and just pull back layers, but there's so much more to your story. If you enjoyed this video, please help us out. You can do it by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hitting that bell icon. It really helps out. And don't forget, there's a complete archive of every episode with show notes at restaurantunstoppable.com.